So I developed some of my own technique and approach to right hand and using the guitar almost like a drum kit. So obviously only a few people have guitars, which is totally fine to kind of tinker and try some of the things I'm doing, but I'm going to explain it in more of a masterclass format where I'm kind of showing you some mechanics, breaking things down simply and building them up within my pieces. And then showing some ways to exercise these and how to kind of turn them into something you can practice too. So I like to think of the guitar as a little drum kit itself. Some of my songs, most of my songs, I'm incorporating a kick and a snare most of the time when I play. When it comes to finding your drums, finding your drum kit, I think that there's a couple different ways to approach it. So obviously you can see my guitar is taking a beating, especially right here. I tend to do a lot of this. In fact, you'll hear a little click sometime because I have some cleats and reinforcement back there because I do so much abuse to my guitar. You don't need to hit your guitar hard. I just tend to have heavy hands. So, but yeah, I mean, when it comes to the way I think of music that incorporates drums, I think that the heart of it is kick and snare. And doing a kick and a snare can be taken from many planes of the top of the guitar. I think that obviously we've seen some people do it down here. Doing it down here is fun. You can do a kick, you can do a snare, you can do a kick, you can do a snare, you can do a kick, snare. But a lot of us are trained to play like this, right? Playing classical, you're trained to play like this. You're going to kind of break the rules doing this stuff. You're going to really plant your arm kind of down on the top of the guitar. That's going to be kind of a crux of having control of your right hand. When it comes to being able to kind of make that consistent kick sound, ignore that extra click. Sorry about that. But when it comes to doing that extra kick sound, you're going to use the base of your palm, the meat of your palm, almost perpendicular with the top, and you can kind of get a consistent sound with the right hand doing the kick. And same down here. Now I like it up here a little more. You have the strings are available, right? But a lot of my songs will incorporate kick and snare constantly throughout the tunes. So I think that a big relationship with the hands when it comes to doing percussion is the left and right hand syncopation, just like a drummer does with paradiddles, with being able to have a balance of rhythm between both hands, you know? So one of the other mechanics that I think is very important is being able to have a consistent mute with your left hand and being able to make a consistent pop, doing it with each finger. Not making any extra string sound. But that seems simple, but it's actually, sometimes it's pretty hard to get consistent. You can accidentally go, you know. But what you want to do is have very consistent. So being able to just do a kick and do what I call that a hi-hat. It's not a snare, it's more of a closed hi-hat. I'm switching fingers, you know, I'm using different fingers for this hi-hat, using different kick, using different snare, but having consistency with the sound. Now it's the most boring kind of approach ever, but that is kind of the crux of a lot of what I'm doing, because what you can do when it comes to being able to have control over the muting of this side, you can actually kind of practice drums along with songs that you know that have drums. Not necessarily acoustic guitar, I'm talking all kinds of music. I remember what kind of had a breakthrough moment for me was I've been playing a lot in my bedroom, okay? I've been playing fingerstyle, playing unplugged, you know? But after playing a couple performances live, I knew it was very different to play on stage with stage volume, monitors, and speakers. So I had a friend who had a rehearsal space that had PA systems And so I asked him, hey, I want to be able to plug in my guitar and just practice, can I use part of your space? And I didn't have the money for a room, so he gave me, an extra storage space that had a PA system and a lot of extra gear, and it had a CD player hooked up to the PA. And when I first got in there and I noticed the CD player hooked up to the PA, I look and there's all these CDs around it, and one of them was a gathering of African drum grooves, African rhythms, and it was just drums. And so I builded my drum kit on my guitar just with some of the simple mechanics, and I started practicing along with that, just muting this left hand muting with being able to do a hi-hat, and then this hand being able to do kick. You can do snare. You can also do toms, like the toms are the drums that are kind of higher up that you can do some more rhythmic kind of articulation with it, but you can do, it's like low toms, middle toms, high toms. So you've got like a whole space and whole world of drums that you can approach on the guitar. So I just started practicing using just no strings, no music, just rhythm, like I'm the drummer practicing now. And I did that for all kinds of CDs. I put in rock music that I knew and blues stuff that I knew, and I just practiced drums along with it. And one of the cool things about being able to incorporate this is you can turn that eventually into a hammer-on or a pull-off or a combination of that by utilizing the strings with your left hand. But now you can now I'm throwing in some toms. The idea is to build that really simple drum kit and then find space in between. I'm kind of going at speed right now. You'd want to start slow, maybe using a metronome. Metronome training was definitely something I spent a good amount of time on, trying to just build up speed, slow it down, and just see how I can incorporate different sounds of the drum kit in between some of those real basic mechanics of kick, hi-hat, snare, hi-hat, and then being able to add toms in between, hammer-ons and pull-offs in between. Eventually you can add harmonics. So like, I have one song, it's called Return to Dawn. It was kind of an earlier piece I wrote, but it has kind of a chorus that sort of uses a drum kit approach. But I'll play that song just to kind of give a little demonstration of, some of these ideas and where you can see how I'm using this and how I've kind of incorporated this idea in my head as my drum kit and my bass player and stuff. Because I always wanted to play drums. My mom said, no, you're not playing drums. I said, okay, how about electric guitar? How about bass? No, you can play acoustic guitar, that's it. So you turn it into your whole drum kit, your whole bass, all that stuff. But this is I tune a lot of open tunings for this kind of stuff. You can definitely play it in standard tunings too, but it's nice to be able to have some of the open strings just kind of singing and ringing out when you're doing this stuff. So this is an open minor tuning. I'm playing a 7-string guitar, but you could do this in a D to D or a C to C on a standard guitar. I'm doing an A, I believe it's a, what is it, A, D, F, A, D. So it's just a minor tuning. I do a lot of minor stuff. But this is a song called Return to Dawn. And I start with, because another thing that you can start incorporating is ghost notes. And ghost notes are, just kind of muted staccato stuff, or even some open strings that you can kind of sneak in between some of those drum patterns. But so I'll use some ghost notes, some hammer-ons and pull-offs, and I'll use some right hand percussion for this. This is like a piece of mine called Return to Dawn. that little phrase right there comes from just some of these basic approaches. Being able to use different sides of the drum to make different snares and kicks, but then adding the left hand to be able to do some notes. So there's lots of ways to use every part of the top of the guitar to be able to do drums and rhythms. So like another piece of mine, I start off with that kind of stuff. It's kind of a heavier, groovier tune of mine called War Games, but that's how it starts. So being able to So it's really just the relationship of this mute with this kick. Now I'm doing it down here because it just has some more impact, but being able to turn this into some hammer-ons is how the song starts kind of moving. So some of the stuff I'm doing in there is the ghost notes I was telling you guys about. Being able to kind of start and stop the strings freely with this hand, you can create kind of some more accents, some more kind of interesting things going on with relatively simple phrasing is what I'm doing. But I'm doing a lot of very subtle So a lot of the extra tom sounds, I'm actually starting to sort of use different parts of my hand to kind of use them. I like to do this a lot, using this extra part of your hand here. Because there's so much meat to the hand that you can use as kind of, you know, drum heads or like kind of like mallets, you know. You use the side of the thumb. You can kind of get, if you can get efficient at it, what I like to do for a little practice and warm-ups is being able to kind of go from here and keep the rhythm. This is going to be kind of your best friend, is being able to keep a consistent meter with that mute. Have real consistent with being able to make a percussive sound with this hand. I think really just starting it out real slow and just being able to go. is building the consistency that you need to be able to do a lot of this other stuff. I think when it comes to one of my tunes, I'm using a lot of this kind of stuff too, where I use a thumb pick, but you don't have to use a thumb pick with this particular tune. But I played it last night, and this was kind of one of my tunes where I keep a consistent 16th note kind of rhythm. That's how I start the song. So one of the things you can do with that, being able to do that kick, is you have control of the strings here. So being able to kind of go down with the kick and then come up with the thumb and just gently pluck that lower string, that's how I kind of make the crux of this song, is being able to kind of so it's one motion, down and then up, down and up, and I catch that string. But that's how I'm able to kind of do the beginning of String Slinger. String Slinger is a lot of this, turning that left hand pop into a hammer-on. So that's really just a relationship again with the left and right hand, being able to have a muted kind of control of the left hand and turn a hammer on into kind of the left right kind of approach, right? So yeah, that's another way I like to approach it, is with a thumb pick you can kind of utilize coming up a lot easier. You can do it without a thumb pick, but it's you got to really turn your thumb. So that's another song where I utilize a lot of the right hand kind of stuff. Now, I also do a lot of harmonics with this right hand. We know how to do harmonics with both hands, but being able to do them with one hand is a relatively common thing in the fingerstyle world. I like to do it with either the thumb and the index finger, like a lot of people do, but I also like to kind of use these fingers, because then you have the availability of using a bass at the same time. So you'll see me do that a lot too. I'll kind of sneak harmonics in by using my pinky. Now my hands are large, so there's a lot of room for that, but sometimes I'll use my ring finger too. Sometimes I'll use my index finger. Sometimes I'll do both, you know. But yeah, to do the harmonic stuff like that, I think that using it with these two fingers, the benefit of that is being able to use other strings with this part of your hand. But doing it with these fingers, you can do bass notes at the same time with this hand. So you'll see me do that a lot. For this real quick here, I'll tune up to, I'll tune up to kind of a standard intervals. Even though it's 7-string, it'll still be standard intervals. So this is a little exercise to build using the harmonics with both sides of your hands. that I learned from Don Ross a long time ago, and I've sort of modified it here and there. But what's cool about this in standard tuning is you can kind of get some really interesting voicings going with it just by the relationship of the open strings and the harmonics. So doing this exercise is really good to build the dexterity of all your fingers. But what I usually start off with this exercise to build harmonics is I usually plant my middle finger on, well, this is what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth string, but for you guys it would be your fourth string on a 6-string guitar. But just being able to pluck the open string. In fact, it'd probably be best if I did it in a standard intervals from the other way, but it's still standard, but just beat a beat. And then, because that's how I think of 7-string, I kind of use it like a baritone guitar, and I use an extra high string more than I think of it like a 6-string guitar with a low string. So it's still the same intervals, just in a lower register, but being able to pluck the open string with your middle finger and then do the harmonic on a string skipped down, so the lowest string in this case. But because these two notes here, they're kind of far apart. They don't have much kind of harmony in that sense. But when you push it up to this register up here in the harmonic, now they're only a step apart. So being able to just utilize and then the harmonic one string skipped lower. And I'm just kind of hiding my thumb and touching the harmonic and plucking and pulling away. And then from there you can shift that just one set of strings down. And you can do that with one hand in a standard tuned guitar. You can practice it with other fingers. Pinky. Utilizing that mechanic, just that basic back and forth open, string skip harmonic, open, string skipped harmonic, open, string skipped harmonic, is you can start adding chords. So you can think of you can think of whatever the chords in first position, you can sort of imagine them up here around the 12th fret as if this is 0, 1, 2, 3. And you can do some chords with kind of like more voicings, more different notes in them. This is a nice chord there. But you can do that same pattern. Now you have to imagine whatever chord you're doing here, you imagine it up here. So, and then you shift that pattern accordingly. So it would be what? Frets 1, 2, 2. You imagine frets 13, 14, 14. You can do just some basic chords that you know, like a C minor, A, D, I do that with a lot of my songs, like the beginning of my song Groove Pursuit. I do that same approach, but doing even higher up into this register here, because you got a harmonic here and you got one here. So if you can kind of imagine that up there, you have to imagine it way up here, which I can't even do, right? But you can imagine the harmonics. But that all comes from that same exercise. And then adding, you know, wrinkles, adding chords into it. It all comes from that same very basic exercise. My songs, I just keep that constant kick going and then utilizing the strings with ghost notes and rhythmic notes in between, doing some hammer-ons and pull-offs with the left hand, but always keeping that consistent rhythm with my right hand. God, that little click is bad, right? So yeah, that's a couple of other approaches with some of the harmonic stuff that I do. But you always kind of see that consistent kind of kick that I'm always utilizing with my music here, either down here or up here. But yeah, I mean, I want you guys to ask some questions and stuff too. I've kind of been giving a lot of information here, but please feel free if you want to kind of hone in on some of the stuff I'm doing and sort of ask some more particular parts of what I'm doing. Please feel free. Yeah, I see you guys have some questions. Yeah.
When you do, I don't see everything because I'm on this side.
Yeah.
When you pick out like this and like.
Yeah, well, that is another thing too. A lot of us are used to, you know, strumming or finger picking, but when I pick, you're asking.
Your hand.
Are you asking like how I just pluck the strings in general? Yeah, well, I mean, I do utilize a lot of keeping my thumb to the lower strings and my other fingers to the higher strings, but the angle is definitely like, it's very flat to the top. I pluck the higher strings towards me and the lower string away from me. But you really do have to keep your hand very planted to do this kind of stuff with keeping the consistent rhythm. Because I actually have a friend who's like a incredible player. He's like a flamenco master, and he's got multiple degrees, and he's trying to learn how to do this stuff, and he's having a hard time. He keeps telling me, like, man, I don't understand the mechanics of where you're putting your hand and how you're able to not kind of fumble the strings all the time. So it's a good question to ask about just the right hand and how you're planting it and how you're plucking the strings, because yeah, this is more what we're used to. But I'd like to really plant my whole forearm on the top to be able to give myself the angle that I need. But it's a very like close angle, and you turn your hand a little bit towards you, and that's probably how I mostly am planting my hand most of the time. Does that somewhat help what you're asking? Because I see you trying it, but yeah, it's very subtle, but I'm always keeping my hand right here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like very subtle, but it's there with using your right hand very planted down on the top of the guitar and finding exactly the right angle to be able to do this stuff. I saw that you had a question as well, my friend.
Is your basic pattern is the bass drum?
Yeah.
Thumb, eye, and thumb.
Yeah. Well, I do a lot of that. What you're talking about, being able to kind of do ghost notes with these fingers to kind of practice whether you want to turn them into actual notes or not. But a lot of what I'm doing is based on right hand kick and then doing like left hand mute tapping.
Yeah, but we hear
Yeah, I mean, I would say that let's make it into something a little more musical with like a chord, like a basic chord here. So yeah, I'm going down with the kick, and when I come up, I usually pluck the open string with the low. But keeping your hand really close by is important. I mean, you'll see me kind of doing extra notes with these fingers in between being able to do. But yeah, you're right. That is what I'm doing. It's something that you really have to start very simple with, by just doing the kick and being able to come up with the open string, and then. That's a good way to exercise it there, is to just find a chord, a bar chord you like, and just start with kick, open, and then add the index finger to do the next note down the next string. So kick, open. Yeah. So that rebound you're doing is really key too. Being able to have consistent rebound and use that rebound to extend your fingers and catch the strings as you're coming up. That's how you kind of get that bounce with the rhythm. And then you find a pulse, you know, you find kind of a pocket with it. But yeah, you're doing it exactly like I'm doing it. It's good. Please ask more questions. This is kind of the stuff where I can kind of pinpoint some things.
It's like a train.
Yeah, and I think I like that a lot, you know, like kind of keeping like a pulse and finding a way to kind of, what I think in my head, even when I'm hearing like a click, I'm thinking halftime in my head, you know, I'm always thinking like cutting it in half and kind of finding like that pocket within that. Antoine, so he would always watch me when I'd be recording, and I don't like the click in my ears so much, but he's always got a click going listening, and he'd be like, oh, you're kind of falling out of time. He says, but he's all think halftime, and that's how you kind of lock it in. Because, yeah, playing to a click is important in the studio, but it throws me off to hear it because I'm thinking kind of like a halftime. I'm always kind of subdividing things when it comes to the groove and the pocket. I think that helps us kind of lock in, is subdividing and thinking of a halftime or a double halftime within that tempo. But yeah, it's a great question.
16th note?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with a lot of the stuff. Well, a lot of the stuff I'm doing that. But even with some of my songs that aren't in that same rhythm and tempo, I'm still utilizing, you know, a backbeat, so to speak, because I think that's kind of the heart of most music. Is like, if you break it down to really simple mechanics percussively, the backbeat is just kick and snare. Everything else is just color in between. So I'm always kind of practicing along with music that's not guitar oriented so that I can sort of hear that rhythm. So I'll put on songs that, you know, whether it's world music or you know, some rock or blues, that kind of stuff, and I'll just practice my drumming along with it to kind of find that pocket and feel like a drummer when I'm playing. I think that's more fun than playing along with a metronome, I think. But playing with the metronome is still important, because what you can do with a metronome is build your speed, go back down, build your speed. A great method I would do is start slow, go up as high as I can by raising the tempo little bits until I'm messing up, then go back down to the original speed again, but start it maybe a couple clicks higher. It's like kind of like, you know, you start here and you go up and then you come back down, but now you're starting here and you go up and you come back down, now you're starting here and you go up, kind of like weightlifting or something like that. So I like to do that when I'm practicing, but I think it's much more fun to practice music you already know. You know the beat, you know the kick and the snare from a song that you've known for a long time that's not solo acoustic finger style, something with like a band. And practicing along with that and just building your mechanics and finding the groove and the pattern with just the kick and the snare first, I think that's a great way to approach this stuff. Just break it down to the simple mechanics of kick and snare and play along with it. I mean, just even this and playing along with a song, you know, is going to lock in your rhythm and your groove a lot more than trying to do it with a metronome. In my opinion, you can come back to the metronome later. But yeah, I mean, please ask some more questions. I would love that. So, anyone else has some more questions?
How much time do you spend on compositions versus just practice?
That's a good question. You know, I really want to spend more time composing personally, but we all deal with, you know, one thing in particular, and that's writer's block, right? We all deal with that. So I do try to kind of have a balance in between, but as far as spending time, I remember there was a period of time in my 20s where I was spending a lot of time practicing technique, drilling technique, but more recently I kind of find myself spending more time composing and playing. Like my more recent record that I released on 7-string guitar, I had a lot of writer's block during the pandemic, wasn't able to perform and play shows, so I thought, well, what if I did it with a live stream? Like today I'm going to work on a song and I click live and now I have to. So there's actually a lot of videos of me composing some of these songs in real time, where I would start with just a very simple idea and build around it. I remember actually Groove Pursuit was one of those songs where it started with almost like 2 songs separated, and I figured out a way to kind of glue them together. But I remember I thought in my head, sometimes I'll just kind of compose based off of an idea in my head before I even play the guitar. I remember I was thinking, ba-na-na-na, bum, ba-na-na-na-na, bum, bum, ba-na-na-na-na, bum, bum, ba-na-na-na-na, bum. And that's how I sort of started that piece, is being able. I remember hearing Victor Wooten during one of his camps that I went to when I was younger. He was talking about, like, if you sing it first, you can find it later. You know, becoming the music yourself is kind of more important than just finding notes you like on the guitar. I also like to just sit there and find notes I like on the guitar. But I think vocalizing it is a really good way to kind of find a new idea without getting kind of stuck on the fretboard. So I did that with that particular song, but I remember when I was doing those streams, I would be composing for about 3 hours, 4 hours a day. That was kind of my general length of time with the live stream before my back hurt or something, sitting in a chair. Actually, eventually I started doing my live stream standing because I need to be more mobile, have more fluid motion and stuff. So standing is something that I'll do a lot at home, especially I'm a big guy, I have back issues, so I'm always standing. A lot of times, I remember actually one of the things I did when I was younger and starting to compose, I come from a background of martial arts. And one of the things we're always doing in martial arts is we're always having mirrors. So in my studio, I would set up mirrors like in a martial arts studio. So I'm always standing and looking at my form in my peripheral vision, because I would always like find myself doing stuff like that. And so I started putting mirrors everywhere to where I would look at myself in my peripheral and I would be like, okay, you're not doing good things for your posture. And I would just kind of like walk around in my studio and just kind of groove and find ideas while kind of checking my posture and my form. Because that's actually what led me into playing fingerstyle after giving up on the guitar for a number of years. I played electric guitar and I went through a period of time where I was making bad choices as a late teenager, early 20s, and I had sold gear and I was broke, and all I had was this old acoustic guitar that I couldn't sell. And I remember I got into martial arts. I got into kung fu and karate, and I thought that's what I'm going to do the rest of my life. And I had a really bad injury that sort of stopped everything, and I was recovering. And that's when I sort of rediscovered the acoustic guitar, when I started seeing Candy Rat records going big on the internet, started seeing videos from guys like Antoine and Andy. And I remember I was stuck in a cast, and I was really missing being able to train on the wooden dummy, the mukjang in Kung Fu. It's like you see the movie Ip Man or any old Kung Fu movie, there's this wooden kind of tree with branches that are like arms, and they practice these patterns with blocks. Clack, 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 clack. And I used to do that all the time, and I was stuck in a cast. And I was like, I need to hit something made of wood and count. So I picked up my old acoustic guitar, and I started hitting it and just counting. Just kind of stuff like that for fun. And then I see Andy McKee playing Drifting on YouTube, and I'm like, what? This is a style? It's like a one-man band, you know? And I always hear a band in my head. I don't hear a solo guitar in my head.
Sounds full.
Yeah, well, and that's what I hear. I don't hear a solo guitar. I hear a bassist, a drummer, and a melody. You know, I kind of hear those different pieces interacting with each other in my head. But I remember it was like kind of like a aha moment where I was like, oh my gosh, you can do this. You can make a whole band on your guitar. So.
A question for
Yeah.
you. Do you find yourself, like sometimes you're composing, you hear something in your head, you got a bass line, you got a melody, you got a rhythm, and you just can't like physically do it. It's like too much stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that yes, I've run into that problem. I do think that there's something about starting with one idea and building around it. I mean, whether it's the melody or the rhythm, starting with one idea and building around it, I think is key to sort of trying to overcome that, because all this stuff is smoke and mirrors. You know, you'll have moments where there's prominent bass line and there's prominent rhythm and prominent melody, but you always kind of have to do a give and take, right? You can't always do everything. So there has to be kind of a smoke and mirrors element where you're giving the audience, you're giving the listener more of the melody so that you can take away from the rhythm, more of the rhythm so that you can kind of lay back on the melody. So I do think that kind of building around one idea and finding how you can mechanically put it together before trying to do it all at once, I think that's important. Like I think when I started one piece, I had like String Slinger, for example. I wanted to do all this stuff at once, but I just started with just being able to do like I'm in the wrong tuning. That's the same mechanic, yeah. But I remember just starting with like one idea and building and building and building until it became kind of a cohesive mechanic. Yeah, because you can do too much too for the listener. It's true. So I think that starting with a simple idea, whether it's the melody or the rhythm, and continuing to build around that, and then deciding when to peel back the layers, I think that's an important aspect to composing. I do. So, but yeah, I mean. Any other questions?
Yeah, what you said is on your website.
Yeah. So I if you go on my YouTube channel, my personal YouTube channel, there's troves of live streams of me. Yeah, and like that exercise, that one that I was showing you, that's a great thing to just practice with one hand and then start adding the other layers. But yeah, I mean. Just to show you again, is starting with an open and then doing a harmonic, but the harmonic's lower, so you skip a string. So it's that's the crux of a lot of the harmonic stuff that I'm doing, is kind of building that up. Now obviously my hand's kind of hidden, but and I think that the point of doing this harmonic rather than these harmonics is to be able to utilize those open strings with these fingers. Now doing it with this hand gives you room to do a bass line. Not everyone has, a pinky that's like my hand size. Everyone's anatomy is different. So finding a way for you to do it with your hand is important. So I mean, you could do it with the middle finger. Middle finger has a little more strength and control. I'm actually catching some open strings with it, but it doesn't sound bad, because that's the other thing, is you can sort of do open notes with harmonics. And being able to control both those at the same time is fun. Yeah, Antoine said my hand looks like a little jellyfish when I do that one. That he's the jellyfish technique. But that's just based off of having control of this and having control of this. So you could turn those double harmonics into open strings. You could add frets. But it's all based off of really practicing that, and then practicing individual harmonics with one hand. There's just a whole world of possibilities with just this hand, and being able to have control. I mean, this took a lot longer than this did. That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, I have a lot of that stuff on my YouTube, all kinds of that stuff on my YouTube. In fact, I'm probably gonna, just to supplement, I've been doing a lot of these little classes lately. Probably gonna start making really short versions of it too, because everyone knows that the attention span of the internet's gone down to less than a minute. So I think I'm going to do some shorts and stuff, because a lot of those streams I'm going for hours, you know, and you can kind of scroll through it and see what I'm doing. I have 2 cameras, so sometimes it zooms in on my hands on the second camera. And I'm actually going to start, because I'm finishing a lot of traveling and touring over the next month, and I sort of like to go home for fall and winter to compose. So what I'm going to start doing is doing those live streams again to force myself to write the next record. I think that's become kind of my method to force my way. It's like I have to go live and turn it into an interactive thing. I can talk while playing really well too, so you'll see me do that a lot on my streams. People will ask me questions and I'll be like, oh yeah, da-da-da-da, here, I'll show you how to do this. So I'm going to start live streams again, and I'm going to start doing shorts again that are more focused on the explanation of how I'm doing things, because most of my content is just me playing. But yeah, if you follow me online, you're going to see a lot of that happening very soon. So yeah, but there's a lot of material there right now on YouTube in particular, but on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, because what I do when I live stream is I actually use a program that lets me send it to everything at once. So I can do YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, TikTok, all at the same time. So yeah, I'm going to be doing that a lot this next fall and winter. So, but yeah, I had one song that uses that stuff. So it's actually a very difficult pattern for me to play, but I like this chord. I love that chord, and I remember I would play that chord and be like, I want to write a song with that chord. So I remember. It's hard for me to do. being... But that comes just from, really from doing that over and over again.
Guitar like this, look at it, or just fun.
I'm sort of doing it for you guys. I actually close my eyes a lot. I actually don't look at the guitar very much. I feel like you can get some tunnel vision doing that sometimes when performing, but when I'm working on music, obviously I'm gonna look at my guitar a lot more. But yeah, you'll notice when I'm performing, I'm really kind of just lost in the zone. So yeah, that song I haven't played in a while because I made a no no-choice with composing that song. I named it after my wife at the time. It's not my wife anymore. Andy McKee talks about that. He's like, yeah, I was writing this song, I was dating this girl, I wanted to write her a song, and I was gonna name it after her, and then I was like, maybe I shouldn't. And I remember in the studio, Antoine's like, what's this song called? It's really nice. And I told him, he's like, you sure? But you know what? Me and my ex-wife are actually still friends. It's very right, yeah, I didn't do that, but that's kind of like in the composer's world, that's like, yeah, you sure? So that's a song of mine called Misha. But that came from just wanting to utilize that kind of same approach, that same mechanic, and the string skipping with the harmonics and the open strings, you know? It all started with just that simple idea, and then I kind of built a rhythm and a tune around it. And I don't play a lot of like major stuff very often, so that was like kind of a nice contrast with my song. But yeah, I mean, that's something that you'll see me do a lot. You'll see me do a lot of the right hand stuff with doing that kind of constant pulse with the kick. But you guys want to ask me some more questions, I'd enjoy answering and kind of trying to pinpoint some things, you know?
Is your technique very influenced by flamenco?
I do steal a lot from them, yeah. I mean, you'll see me do little rolls and kind of rescados in between a lot of things. I never studied flamenco formally. I just kind of listened to it, and I love the, you know, kind of the rhythm of being able to kind of do things in between the percussive stuff. So I do steal a lot from those guys. You'll see me steal stuff from all kinds of people. Like there's this one Don Ross song that I always liked that I kind of changed a lot. But I wanted to learn how to use a thumb pick, and I was having a lot of trouble with it. I almost felt like it was never going to happen. I was like always like fumbling, and the pick would fall off or it would break.
It doesn't work.
No, for years I felt the exact same. Also, I realized that finding the right size one was actually a big deal. I have big hands, so every thumb pick would just kind of break after a couple minutes. It would just kind of break right there because of the force of fitting it onto my fat thumb. But I did find one in particular that I liked. It's the Golden Gate GP8, which is the largest one they offer. But it's a little thicker and it's a little bigger, and it works with my hand. Also, one thing that I kept having a problem with is them slipping off. So I had an idea, well, like, what if this inside part was a lot more porous and had some grip? So I took a little razor blade or a long knife, and I would just kind of go to town etching little X's everywhere on the inside. And that was able to, like, oh, okay, that's staying put now. Now I don't really have to do that. I can control it. But yeah, the thumb pick took me a long time to really click. And this is a song that I just always loved of Don Ross's. That wasn't one of his most popular ones, but it used a thumb pick, and I loved the rhythm, but I also couldn't do the rhythm that he was doing. So I was like, well, what if I just change it? So I kind of change a lot of songs that I do cover. Like I cover Andy McKee's Ebon Coast, and I change it into kind of like a swing groove kind of rhythm. And that was inspired by like listening to a lot of reggae at the time. But yeah, the thumb pick, I always loved the thumb pick once I was able to kind of get control of it. And I played this song. But I'm using like some hybrid kind of cross picking. It's like kind of a banjo thing to do that claw hammer cross picking thing. So I steal from flamenco guys, I steal from some banjo guys, you know. There's little bits and pieces that I like, oh, I can. But yeah, I mean, changing the rhythm and the groove to fit something that you vibe with, I think is actually a really perfectly fine approach. Like whenever I cover Andy's songs, I always change I slow it down because I couldn't really play it quite at speed of what he was doing. But I was also in Hawaii at the time, and there was all kinds of reggae everywhere. Just a lot of like that kind of. So I remember. Not perfectly in tune, but that's okay. But I was like. I couldn't get rid of that rhythm. I was listening to all this reggae, and I remember I was sitting there practicing. I was like, why don't I just make it a reggae tune? If I keep messing up the rhythm, it's like I'm just gonna not do it the way he does. I'm just gonna do it my own way. And so that's how that kind of came to be. And he always kind of compliments me on that because he's like, wow, you really kind of took my song and made it into your own, you know? And I just imagined a little reggae band, like. So I think changing it to your own groove is a great way to actually learn a lot of these pieces that you might like. And it's a good way to kind of vary your approach to hearing different grooves, that kind of thing. But a lot of that came again from me just practicing my drums along with stuff. Finding that African groove and rhythm drum CD and just playing along with it was like a huge kind of eye-opener for me personally. So yeah, that's some of the ways I approach a lot of this stuff. So yeah, of course, man. So yeah, any other questions for me? And you guys, I know that some of you have guitars and you want to like have a drill exercise. So I tried to show a couple things, but you know, some of the people that don't, I kind of wanted to make it more about the theory and approach as well. So. I know that Randy's going to film all this and post it probably relatively quickly. He's been making videos of my performances on this run, and he's like posting it within a couple hours. So what you see here is probably going to be accessible fairly quickly if you guys want to be able to actually review some of this stuff. I think it'll be on his, Randy Luge, but I'm going to post it on all my channels so that you can kind of have the link, that kind of thing. So yeah, this will all be accessible as far as, you know, being able to review this. Do I ever hurt my fingers? You know, this hand, no, I use acrylics, which not everyone does. But yeah, no, I mean, in this hand, I mean, obviously I have calluses, but not as, when I do this stuff? No. Fine, I mean, being able to not use too much strength is probably important. I tend to overdo it a lot because I have heavy hands. But I think just doing just enough is really all you need to do.
And don't you find it boring to play like a regular guitar?
I mean, I do play electric guitar, and I try to do some drills and stuff, but I always find myself going back to doing this kind of stuff, to having that rhythm and beat. I love feeling like my own little band, you know. Like this was one part that I wrote for Groove Pursuit that actually I thought was going to be a different song, but eventually I was like, what if that just became an extended bridge and it changes kind of the song. But I remember I was just working on just some chords I liked in standard tuning. This is in standard intervals. There's some variation, and it stays interesting with the slight variations, but really that whole thing's just... So like a lot of my songs, you'll notice it's just like 3 or 4 chords, and that's really the crux of everything. But I find ways to make little variations by making my right hand utilize the backbeat, utilize the ghost notes. Being able to start and stop strings is really key, I think, to being able to vary one chord and being like... That whole piece is just those same 4 chords, but I've kind of dissected them and turned them into more arpeggios and kind of like used kind of some inverted versions of the chord. But that whole thing's just 4 chords the whole time. But I've figured out how to kind of vary each thing and kind of change it a little bit to where it becomes a song. And I think that you can do that with just, I mean, everyone knows that 4 chords can make a song, but even within this fingerstyle stuff that has so many options, you could still base it all around 4 chords. Like Rainfall I played last night is basically 3 chords, you know? And there's so much variation within the song melodically, but it still bases around the same pattern, you know? So I do that a lot with my composing because I like simple, you know, structure. But I do like having a lot of options with my right hand. So that's sort of what I try to focus on showcasing when I do these little classes. Yeah, the right hand is definitely, like, I'm doing fairly simple stuff with the left hand, sort of, you know. It really comes from a very simple approach. But the right hand is what's doing most of the work in my music. And I think with a lot of the fingerstyle. Yeah, the right hand's the magic, it's true.
And I suppose you go with the drum and with the punch.
Oh yeah, well, you mean like, do I play with a group?
Tap, but you do tap at the same time, or?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always either starting with a melodic idea or a drum rhythm. I'm always kind of starting with that. And a lot of times, like you'll see me on my live streams, I'll just like put a song on and just practice drums. Like, okay, time for my drummer to practice, and I'll put on a song that's not guitar, and I'll just practice drumming along with it. I mean,
Bunch at the same time.
yeah, exactly. Like I'll try to break it down to just the kick and the snare in the song that I'm listening to, and I'll try to. That's a good way to just kick snare, and just listen to a song that has drums and just ignore everything else. Just think of the kick and the snare and kind of practice that, and then start. Because that's the cool thing about kick and snare is you can start making 2 hits into one, 3 hits into one. You can do all kinds of stuff just from the kick and the snare, and then adding layers to that. So I do that a lot with the way I practice. I put on music I like, and I'll just practice my rhythm and percussion. And then maybe I'll practice like the bass with just my left hand, because I know I want to keep this right hand to have some options. So I'll practice, like I'll put the same song on again, I'll just listen to the bass line. I'm like, yeah, then add melody. I'm just improvising now. I'll do stuff like that all the time, just to kind of like give myself the separation in my head of my drummer, my bassist, and my guitar player. So I think that's a really great way to approach this stuff. But you can break down any music rhythmically with just kick and snare. Just kick and snare. I think that's a great way to kind of break it down.
Type of strings you work on?
I'm trying a new string right now, actually. I think they sound a little used after playing them last night. Now, I'm kind of cursed. I have very corrosive sweat, very low pH. So, like, strings turn black after one show. But I play a lot of gigs back home where I'm playing for maybe 3 hours straight, 4 hours straight. And I'll improvise, I'll kind of extend my songs, make a 5-minute song into a 10-minute song by varying the tempo and doing some slight changes and stuff. But for most of my performing, I love aluminum bronze, like Antoine also from Ernie Ball. And there's something about the low end and the low mids in those strings that I really like, how they punch with the bass response. But I'm trying right now the Bell bronze, which I like that they last a little longer for one. The aluminum bronze don't last that long for me. They last 1 gig. This, I'm kind of like, okay, these work still. They still sound. String is always the one that dies first, But I do really like the Bell bronze that they just released. I think they have a really good kind of like sparkle to them. Slight more tension, but aluminum bronze is my favorite for the low tunings and baritone and 7-string. This string sounds a little dead, so one little thing Antoine used to show me is to get all the gunk out of it. Now it's a little better. Oh yeah, what time is it? Oh wow, we did another 10 minutes. Yeah. You lose track of time doing this. I don't lose any sense of time. I just like to interact with people. But yeah, I use the acrylic nails too, just to kind of like go into some of the stuff I didn't really talk about. I use acrylic nails personally because I think they like double, triple your volume and your attack. So I personally like to use the acrylic nails. Now I don't live with them on. I take them off, I sand my nail down so it's a healthy nail bed and it can get air and stuff, and then I put them on before I play. I used to go get them done and they'd be like on like that for weeks. I was like, no, I don't need that. I just need it when I play. So I actually just buy a really basic nail kit from like the corner store.
And they stick them.
Yeah, and with the nail glue. Yeah, I mean, you saw me playing. My nails aren't coming off, But you use more glue than a normal person would, who's just doing nails for cosmetic. Use a little more glue, and I also push the nail further up rather than further down. A lot of people who do their nails, would use only the tip. But I push it further up into the nail bed, use more glue, especially the thumb. Thumb's going to do most of the work. But yeah, real basic nail kit is what I like to do. But you'd notice if I took these off how much less control and volume and dynamics I have. That's not to say any of the guys who use flesh and nail don't sound great. Me personally, I lose a little too much. I want it to be really bright and powerful, so I use acrylic nails. I also keep them very short. I don't do long. I used to do really long when I first met Antoine, and then I kind of got shorter and shorter. I want them to just be just up to the top of the flesh, with the pinky being slightly longer and the thumb being slightly longer, but these ones are pretty relatively up to the flesh of the finger, and I taper them a little bit towards me, because when you look at how you're plucking, we're plucking the strings down here like this, and we're plucking the thumb going down like this. So I do a very slight taper on the edges for that reason. So, but yeah, as far as tunings I do a lot of open minor tunings. This is the one that I stayed in relatively most of the time recently, was like just standard intervals but on a 7-string. But the way I like to think of the 7-string is like a baritone guitar, B, E, A, D, F sharp, B. And then I think of the high string as my extra string, and I keep it open. Like this one's like a C sharp, a D flat, so it fits with a lot of minor stuff. But then I can go up to D, and I can do like the devil hands I did last night. So I like being able to just use it like a high string and think of it like a 6-string baritone more than I try to play like a 6-string with a low string. That's sort of how I think of it. But one of my constant tunings I'm always using is like I'm always using like was it with A, D, F, A, D, F, D, no, A, D, A, D, F, A, D. So on a standard 6-string, I think what I did for a long time was D, G, D, G, B flat, D. So I do that a lot. Like there's like a lot of my tunes where I use just those minor intervals, and I really like minor keys, so I'm always playing in that. But most of my music's probably in that. String slingers. So I'm always using those tunings a lot. And then one of the more oddball tunings I do is like a major 7 for rainfall. I like that one a lot. So it's like a drop D up here. But then here, I do, in this case, a D flat and an F, or an E. I really like this tuning. I came up with this one like just for this song. But I played it last night with the guys. But it's fun to find a full chord that you like in a tuning. You sort of have to restructure the fretboard a little bit. But this was one of my favorites for a long time. It was like a major 7 interval. But yeah, that song is based on, again, just, I remember I just thought of, just 3 chords. But I love that tuning. Yeah, I can close out with that. We did mostly just talking about technique and stuff. I haven't really played a full song, but yeah, I'll close out with just playing a tune. I play plugged in almost all the time.
The pickup, the mic, and the piezo. How do you manage the balance of?
I do think that that's really important, especially with, I always play plugged in even when I'm at home. So like, yes, I do that. But I always try to have at least 2 sources. And having 2 outputs, a mic in there, but I turned it off last night, for example. I didn't even use it. I think the piezo is like 70% of your tone, 80% of your tone. I use the magnetic mostly for low end. So I think kind of thinking it in a shelf, low, mid, high. Dedicate most of the low end to the magnetic. It really doesn't have the greatest high end sounds. And I dedicate most of the mid range to the piezo. And then I use a lot of the higher kind of sounds with the mic. And I'll use kind of, I like to use the radial stuff because they usually have a couple inputs for pickups. So you can kind of get, especially the bigger one they have, the PZ Pro has 2 EQ channels. But being able to separate the sources, think of them like low, mid, high, and then kind of get the best and remove the worst of each one is how I like to kind of make my live sound and have a balance. So.
Did you have some feedback problems? Or?
No, in fact, last night we just plugged in. It was pretty much ready to go. The past few gigs we've done, it's like the sound guy's like, wow, the source is fine. I don't need to really do a whole lot. Now I'm playing in a lower register, so usually there's less work to do. It's the mid-range that has a lot of like feedback, like around like 400 and 800, that kind of thing. Speaking in, you know, the frequency range, but yeah.